What's up guys, Sinapse here, and today I'd like to talk about the pendulum of game. Okay, this is one of my favorite analogies which sort of explains a lot about the process of learning game. Alright, now as you begin on the journey of game, right, most people start out, they were taught very nicely by their mothers to treat women with utmost respect and dignity and always be polite and don't push things too far and don't make them feel uncomfortable, right? So one of the first things that guys learn, wherever they start first reading about game or how they should actually, meet and approach women, is that they do need to be a little bit more assertive. They need to be a little bit more aggressive and push things a little bit more for what they want, right? So rather than just accepting whatever pleasant treatment and hoping that the girl decides to throw some vagina your way, you do have to go out there and get it for yourself. Now, that doesn't mean anything over the top or crazy. It just means sitting and hoping that, just being her friend and just being near her is going to result in some magical sexcapade is probably not the best strategy, right? Everybody knows this, the nice guy friend zone type interaction and relationship, right? So instead, what gamers learn to do is they learn to go and be a little bit more blunt, a little bit more aggressive, lead with a little bit more edginess, leadership, pull girls back a little bit sooner, a little bit faster, not always buy girls everything or, take them on endless dates and worship them financially, right? Or whatever it is it might be. So this is a really powerful first lesson for guys, right? They learn to swing things really hard the other direction, where they might have been start out super polite, super nice, super respectful, and afraid of offending girls, afraid of, making their intentions known. They won't hide how they truly feel about the girl, which is why they come in under the cloak of friendship, right? And then they push that all the way the other direction. This is a very, very powerful first transformation in game. And they go out and be like, I'm just going to be straightforward, direct, aggressive, be like, look, if you're not going to come with me now, then we're done, whatever, right? All of this kind of like hard game, being kind of direct, blunt, straightforward, not really masking your intentions, and kind of letting her walk away if that's not what she's willing to do. That's very, very powerful. At a certain point, though, it reaches its like apex. Like if you think of a pendulum, it reaches its apex, and then it starts to kind of swing back the other way, right? So it reaches the point at which that particular paradigm for you is no longer, there's no more lessons that direction for you to learn. In other words, you can't get more aggressive, more dominant, more strong without massively dropping off your results, right? And indeed, if you go really, really far that way, you're just going to be unrelatable. Girls are going to be like, who's this guy? He seems really convinced of himself and on his own thing, but he's not really listening to me, and so I'm just going to let him go, right? Bye. And so that's kind of the limits of being very, very strong-willed and powerful leader, blunt, direct, open. And then things start to slide back, right? You'll naturally learn to calibrate. You'll be like, well, I was forgetting about the whole other side of the experience. I was forgetting about the girl, about her motivations, about what she needs, what she's interested in, and, sort of empathy of the situation, okay? And as the pendulum starts to swing back the other way, you'd be like, oh, all those things that everybody was talking about, all those things about, paying attention to the girl and having empathy and having respect, there actually was a little bit of wisdom to that. It was just taken a little bit too far, right? So whereas most of society is kind of almost castrated, right, by their desire to be nice or pleasant, right? They don't have any fangs. They don't have the balls to make the moves that they want to, right? And are terrified of getting accused of something, accused of harassment or rejected or anything, right? But they realize that, look, the other side, the empathy side, the paying attention to women's actual emotional states, mental states, and understanding, really, really trying to understand not just what they're saying, but kind of the deeper level, right? That whole aspect, that whole paradigm has a lot to teach you about game. And, you can get to a pretty intermediate level by being very direct, very forceful, very blunt, and not worrying at all about what the girl is doing. And it has its advantages, especially for training your own mental state, right? Not being paralyzed by worrying about what she's thinking. Does she like me? Like, is it okay? Can I kiss her now? Is it too soon? Right? Instead of just saying all that kind of stuff in your head, just being like, fuck it, just go for the kiss, right? That kind of stuff is powerful, but at the same time, flipping back the other way, swinging the pendulum back, and learning all the lessons on the other side of the spectrum, okay? Now, of course, then things will go too far this way. You'll be like paying attention to her too much. You'll be like, wow, that's so interesting, right? And tell me more about that. Like, how deep can we go, right? And that's, again, lots of lessons there to be learned. Ultimately, what I'm trying to say is the best way to learn is to push things really far one direction until you know where you're going too far, right? And be like, well, any farther than that is getting ridiculous, right? Or any farther than that, it's just, there's nothing to be gained. Gain the lessons from each side of the equation and then swing back and forth, right? Because if you stay on one side or the other, chances are you're going to be stagnating, right? So make sure to always, if you get to one extreme or one situation, flip back, go the other direction, and eventually you sort of calibrate somewhere nicely with a nice little range in the middle where you can, depending on the girl, you can be, and your current mood and your state, your situation, whatever, you can push a little bit more this way or push a little bit more this way as necessary, right? You're not just applying some blanket filter or some automatic routine to every single girl you talk to. Rather, you're adapting in the moment and, you know, calibrating yourself in the moment based on what the situation is, what she's giving you, you know, what you're feeling, what you need to do, right? And that's more powerful ultimately than either being really far on one side of the pendulum or really far on the other, right? So what are some examples of, you know, these axes, right? These poles between which you can oscillate, right? Now, one of them would be, you know, the idea of going for numbers and going for dates and like romancing women, right? And that's really good, right? That's awesome. You know, that's kind of how I started out most of game. That's basically what a lot of people start out with. They start out just going on more dates, getting more lines, going on dates, right? And then you have the other side of the equation, which is all just hard and fast pulls, like now or never, right? If you saw my recent video on why I don't date Japanese girls, you'll see my thought process behind that. And of course, I do date Japanese girls, right? But I very, very specific about the kinds that I date. I'm not going to spend a whole night and 3 to 5 hours planning out a date with a girl if, you know, she doesn't really inspire me, right? So I'm much more selective these days about the dates I go on, whereas, you know, 4 years ago, I would go on 4 or 5 dates a week and just be, all right, let's just do the date. Let's just go through the motions. Let's lead the girls. Let's pull them. Let's do everything. Let's just see how it goes. You know, it'll be fun. But now I'm a little bit more selective. But that said, I still oscillate a little bit. Sometimes I'll be like, yeah, I don't even want to date girls. And sometimes I'll be like, yeah, I'll date a couple, you know, casually. But the point is, right, is that on all of these axes, right, so the leadership empathy axis, the dating and SNLing axis, right, and all these other axes, there's kind of a lot to learn in the middle ground. But in order to learn the middle ground and the best possible way to execute in each situation, you have to push things to one extreme and then back to the other extreme. Learn the limits of each extreme and find a happy balance that you can adapt to in the moment. All right, guys, so that is what I like to call the pendulum of game and how it fluctuates back and forth and helps you learn through extremes and finding a calibration balance right in the middle. All right, guys, hope you enjoyed it. Remember to jam that like button and drop a comment if you want to. Enjoy.